Okay, so last time I did this presentation, I was given 2 hours. So I've been given originally 40 minutes and now about 30 minutes. So I'm going to try and condense it down as much as possible. And thank you for the opportunity. So as a result, I guess some of those slides I will actually glaze over. Feel free to ask me at the end for a copy, or even send me an email with your details and I'll send you a copy back. There is some pretty interesting information. Briefly today, I'm just going to cover a little bit about Cymax, I guess my perception of the cloud, the market and where I see that it's actually heading, some of the challenges that we've seen with the cloud for businesses over the last couple of years, a model that we've adopted based off my understanding of what I believe a business actually needs to run effectively within the cloud, a case study, a few tips and pointers around making sure that your business is ready for engaging and making your infrastructure available through the cloud. Just recap on some of the benefits and then any questions. Okay, so a little bit about Cymax and myself. I've actually been in the IT industry now for all of my adult life. I started Cymax when I was 17 and very soon we'll be enjoying our 16th year of trading. So I'm 33 years old. If you do the math, I actually started the company back at high school. I've been through the Y2K, I've been through the tech boom and the tech crash, so I've seen a lot of trends happening throughout the industry. My background as a result of being through some of these has given us an opportunity to be not necessarily on the bleeding edge of technology, but certainly leading the way. And the fact that throughout the entire period that I've been working within technology, it's been around business. It started in enterprise. One of the first clients that we worked with was Mercantile Mutual, and discussing matters with some of their board and advisors and certain other enterprise. So I saw an opportunity to take enterprise IT solutions and apply them down to the SME space without necessarily having that enterprise budget. Recently, Cymax was voted in the top 10 managed service providers in all of Australia. And I think that that's a really good accolade considering the other 9 that are actually in there as well. It's a real honour to be there. We have a very diverse client base these days. It's a nice split between your traditional on-premise server type scenarios and a lot of customers which are now going cloud-based. In fact, 54% of we had a growth of 54% in revenue last financial year, and the majority of that growth was in the cloud space. So businesses are quite aggressively approaching that sort of area. The whole goal of Cymax has always been about leveraging technology. It's either been about minimizing your risk, ensuring that you're compliant, or improving your staff productivity. And we've just seen a shift over the years towards IT becoming more of a commodity. Businesses have an expectation that they're actually going to get a return on it, and they want to see what that return is. Which is why we've seen that shift down managed services contracts, and that's where the onus is more on either the IT department or the IT company to deliver uptime and deliver consistency rather than just sending them bills every time something breaks. I've also seen a little bit of a trend, and this one's not talked about very often, which is a hybrid cloud. I will touch on it a little bit further in the slides, but that's where businesses at the moment will have a split between part of their business being in the cloud and part of their business still being on-premise. And I had a meeting with an organisation on Monday, and they actually fit within that particular model there. They're currently at 50-50, but they'd actually said to me during the meeting that they see, as an accounting firm, they see within the next 6 months that they'll be transitioning 100% to the cloud. So this is Gartner's definition of the cloud. I won't go into the detail. My definition is a little bit more specific around that. I see it as a commodity. It's like electricity. I think businesses would like to know that they can turn it up when they need it and turn it down if it's required. There's quite a number of what we call software as a service products, including Salesforce, Xero, FreshBooks. FreshBooks and Xero really were the pioneers in accounting. It took a while for some of the other accounting software practices to come up to speed, but they're starting to do that. Salesforce certainly was a pioneer in the industry. They started out with the cloud model over 10 years ago, and cloud around that sort of 10-year time frame ago was called hosting. Cloud's actually been around for a lot longer than people actually realize. It's just the marketing people had an opportunity to sink their teeth into it, give it a nice little buzzword. But just out of curiosity, before we go into the detail on any of these other products, I just want to see a show of hands who's using Facebook, either personally or professionally. Keep your hand up, those who are using LinkedIn, Gmail, heard of them. I think that's covered everyone in the room anyway. We're all using cloud at the moment. In one iteration or another, we're either using it on a personal level, but certainly within a business capacity, we're starting to see a lot more usage within Gmail and Microsoft's insertion with Microsoft Exchange and Office 365. That tends to be the place that most businesses start to look first. Interestingly enough, a lot of people are using Dropbox, which is a cloud-based product, and I've referred to Salesforce before, which is a CRM. There's a lot more ERP vendors these days. ERP stands for Enterprise Resource Planning. That is a whole of business solution, one single database to run all aspects, your customer relationship management, your production facilities, your finance, your HR, your leave requests. It can all be done through an integrated system, and there's some huge productivity benefits that a business can have as a result of implementing an ERP system. But certainly most people that I speak to have heard of Salesforce. A lot of adopters in financial management systems move to Xero and FreshBooks. A lot of those applications fit into what we call software as a service, blogs, email, again, Salesforce, CRM, Office productivity. There is an industry section which we refer to as platform as a service. That's typically where you have an opportunity to rent service space from a service provider for a certain amount per month. It's still then your responsibility to put your operating system and all of your applications in there and manage and maintain it. And really, I guess the opportunity that I see within the market is in this infrastructure as a service. Just taking back a step from a disclaimer perspective, whilst I have been in the industry for 16 years, there's a number of different ways that people are projecting that things will go. This is really just the way that I've seen the technology going thus far and where I believe that the industry is heading, or from my experience of dealing with businesses where I feel that the industry really needs to go for companies to get the best out of their IT or to get the best out of the cloud. So it's not the way, it's just a way, and a way that I see it happening. A lot of people have heard of Google Mail and these various other applications, and whilst they're really handy, the big challenge that I find with them is that they're disparate systems. You've got your email sitting over here with one provider, you've got your file sharing with another provider over here, the different passwords. Is the information actually kept within Australian borders, these sorts of things. So it actually becomes a little bit more of a challenge managing how these systems are all glued together than in some cases the productivity benefits that you can actually get from having it. And that's why I believe that infrastructure as a service is really where the market needs to be heading, because it is literally an opportunity to take these applications and produce and deliver them to you as a suite of tools so that you can just get on in your business. They're estimating that there are 1 trillion cloud-ready devices that will be available by 2015. I encourage all of you, if you get an opportunity, to jump online and just type into your Google search the Internet Minute. It's a picture that was produced by Intel, and that they're estimating that by 2015 there will be double the number of wireless capable devices in the world than there are people on the planet. It's got some interesting stats on YouTube, it's got some interesting stats on the amount of videos that are uploaded, the number of tweets, those sorts of things, but that stat is quite convincing. It says that the cloud is actually going to be there. 40% of the world's data centers have already implemented a cloud-based strategy or infrastructure to be able to accommodate for where business. At the moment, the largest consumer of cloud-based infrastructure is North America. The thing that I found quite interesting about this particular slide is that in our region, we're actually exceeding Japan and Eastern Europe. And again, the cloud infrastructure is more an enabler, where we used to spend money on capital and having this infrastructure where we were expecting growth and we were predicting growth. The cloud gives us an opportunity to have an operational expenditure. So we can spend the money as it's needed. We can scale up as the opportunity and the demand continues to grow and confidence returns to the market. If we need to, if there's an adjustment back in the market or a correction where things go south again, you can scale down and you don't have your cash that you could use for your business tied up in marketing strategies or putting in the right resources. You won't have that tied up in technology that you may not necessarily use for a couple of months, potentially 18 months. The drivers for cloud adoption at the moment focus mainly around agility, scalability, and cost. But what we'll see over the next few years is more around innovation and competition, agility, mobile devices, those sorts of things. So those businesses that are taking advantages now of cloud will be positioned quite nicely to be able to offer work-life balance for their employees. They'll be, for the new breed of employees that are coming through, they'll be actually positioned where they're a technology-savvy organization and become more appealing to the people. The slide's a little bit difficult to see, but basically what we're saying is that irrespective of what segment of the market that you're actually in, there's already been a very large percentage of current adopters. The next wave of adopters that we're seeing coming through, you can see somewhere between 70 and 91% of businesses are going to be using the cloud, which tells me that if you're not taking advantage of the leverage that you can get for your business and you're in this percentile, you're probably going to miss out. Initially, we saw a large amount of the adoption was in the private sector, but we have seen that 70% of SMBs are already using some form of cloud already. At the moment, if we look at the split between the public and the private sectors, we can actually see that a large percentage of them are already using it. Irrespective of the number of employees, those that have cloud-based services in use today. So it's a pretty compelling story to at least say where the industry is heading. The firm that I spoke to specifically said, we believe that within 6 months, our entire accounting practice will be in the cloud. It's been much smaller and faster in smaller companies in 2011. And surprisingly, the satisfaction rate sitting around the 96th percentile with regards to the adoption of the cloud. I think the most important reason for that is because the businesses that are achieving that sort of percentage are the ones that have taken the time to actually plan. They've not dived straight in, they've had a look at what their risks are going to be, the pitfalls, some of the challenges, and they've been able to manage that as part of their transition. Now, irrespective of whether you're looking to do an on-premise infrastructure upgrade or cloud, change management is one of those things that is really important to consider. As the drivers for the business, occasionally we're very quick to get in and we can see the benefits of it, but there's quite often these employees that have to follow behind us and kind of keep up with the way that we're actually driving things. And sometimes the communication and just slowing things down a little bit so that everybody's on the same page can mean the adoption for the business as a whole is much better than necessarily just trying to implement a piece of technology that nobody actually knows anything about. Going back to infrastructure as a service, that's one of the differentiators there. It's a model that people are used to. It looks similar to the current desktop that they've got versus changing the different package that they're already used to using. The most common ones are still email and backup. Most businesses that I talk to today, if they haven't already got their email hosted with somebody else, they're seriously talking about it or they're asking us about it. There's some huge benefits in there: reduced risk, compliance, less time required for your IT people to look after it. The credibility of your business, if your email system goes down and your clients are actually getting a bounce back these days, that says your systems aren't running smooth. How capable are you going to be of delivering to them their requirements of you in whatever product or service that you fulfill to them? The barriers in 2009, we saw the major one being security. The other challenges were integration and then performance and reliability. Consistently, these are still the biggest challenges to do with the cloud. And I don't want to alarm you, but this is the big one for me. Most people don't necessarily know when you talk about some of these cloud providers where your data is actually stored and how easily you can get a copy of that data back if you need to. or how secure it actually is against hacks. It's quite alarming when you hear about companies like Sony and the fact that with their entire online PlayStation network, where they charge a monthly amount to your credit card, that someone was able to hack in and actually pull all that information out. For those sorts of companies who put a huge amount of money into online security, it's still one of those things that needs to be addressed. And unfortunately, it's not being addressed by many of the cloud providers. There was a television reporter who had spoken on hacking and had done an article on hacking. And as a result, there was one of the hackers who retaliated in kind, hacked the news reporter's account and posted on a website just how easy it was to get this piece of information and then this piece of information, and progressively drill down. So if you're not securing the information within your office, you need to make sure that you're asking the right questions around security and risk minimization of loss of data if you are considering going to the cloud. I think you'll find over the next few years that integration with other applications will continue to evolve. Businesses are having more of an expectation that the applications are going to talk to themselves. I guess the challenge with some of the larger organizations is that they want to own the client and they want to own the data, so they're a lot less likely to actually open up that, what I call open integration with other clients, or having integrated type solutions. The big one though, that most people don't talk about, is compliance. Sometimes moving to the cloud can actually tick a number of the boxes for your organization that if you were to maintain the current infrastructure that you've got, you're not able to tick. And some organizations don't even know that they're not compliant with their regulatory requirements. We did an audit of an accounting firm and they were very short from where they needed to be. We started with an on-premise solution for them because at the time the cloud wasn't mature enough. And now the cloud and the infrastructure available is at that level where they can move, again, their whole infrastructure into the cloud, pick up those productivity improvements and save themselves. They're probably looking at saving about 30% on their per month IT expenditure. Lock-in is a big concern, but I think these days most people are willing to either commit and have a very good relationship, or those providers which are, pay per user per month will give you at least some option of being able to get your data back out. Okay, some of the big challenges is what happens if there's an outage. Most people, when they're actually asking this question, start by asking what happens if there's an outage with the cloud provider. Most cloud providers will actually publish their statistics. The outages typically tend to happen at the customer's end, not at the cloud provider's end. And there are a couple of solutions that you can implement to ensure that loss of productivity is minimized should there be an outage. We've seen within Australia a number of service providers that are now available which will offer a business grade wireless line of sight solution, which means that if a backhoe was to come through and actually cut the comms lines, you can fail over and continue to run your business. With the emergence of 3G, mobile broadband is now an option, and other businesses now have a couple of 3G devices that they can literally plug in. Some organizations go with 2 ADSL connections, and we have a couple of firms who have floor space available in other buildings. So if anything were to happen to their whole office, something burnt down, they can literally just pick up and move. But the nice thing is they don't have to worry about the disaster recovery side of getting their data back. They can work at it from home. They could work at it from a nice comfy, recliner or a hammock by the Bahamas if they wanted to. And it gives them a level of peace of mind that their data's there and they can continue to run their business irrespective of what happens. Okay, the big challenge, I guess, with SMBs to date has been they either don't have the resources or the people to necessarily get themselves trained in cloud and cloud technology. They don't have the resources to implement new technologies, or they just plainly don't have the time. And that's why I believe that infrastructure as a service is really the way that the next wave of cloud is going to be, because it's an integrated solution that will give you that level of familiarity, with to include that same internet token level of security. So whilst you might have a laptop and you've heard about the probability of people actually hacking and getting your information out, if you've got this little randomly generated number that changes every minute, they can get your username, they can get your password, which was the case with this person that was the news reporter. But if you've got that little token that changes every single minute, the likelihood of you being hacked goes down significantly. And for what used to be, tens or twenties of thousands of dollars to implement within organizations is now about $8 a month per user to give you that level of peace of mind around your information and the information security. I think it's well worth it. Last Monday, I was at a conference. There was about 400 CEOs, and one of the CEOs was running an ERP system, and they'd said to me, Sean, we've recently moved into the cloud with our ERP vendor, and I said, that's fantastic. And with one simple question, I was able to identify that they weren't compliant with the PCI regulations for storing credit card information. I think it's 8.3 or something like that, which requires them to have two-factor authentication. They now have their databases stored on somebody else's equipment, and they're accessing that data, albeit encrypted, but they don't have that two-factor authentication, which means that if somebody else is able to compromise their local laptop, desktop computer, whatever the case may be, they're then able to get in and access all of that credit card information or other information about their customers, their P&L, HR information. So it does really become quite a large minefield if you're not on top of these sorts of things. And a lot of IT companies talk technology. They don't talk strategic. They don't talk about these issues and these risks. And a lot of business owners either aren't aware of it or they've been made aware of it and they choose to bury their heads in the sand. With more adoption of cloud infrastructure, almost becomes a requirement where you're aware of it or you're partnering with somebody who's able to actually stay on top of this stuff and keep you up to speed so that you can focus on. This is a client that almost 12 months ago now had moved into the cloud. Prior to moving into the cloud, they had a server which had their ERP system. They were running a full online shop with over 25,000 stock lines. They're a wholesaler based out at Wacol. We went through a migration plan, an implementation plan, and the longer term outcomes were not only were we able to save them $30,000 in initial capital, but we saved them somewhere between $300 and $500 a month in their ongoing IT. So this is a good example of where we've been able to save. On a cloud-based scenario, the big buzzword that people hear is around savings, but it's more about agility. Cloud really just shifts where you spend your money and gives you a lot more flexibility. When it comes to accessing the cloud, we recommend that anybody who's thinking about it undertakes a cloud readiness audit. And if you'd like to send me your details at the end, I'd be happy to send you a brief questionnaire that we've got, which is basically an opportunity for you to just self-assess how capable your business is of running from the cloud or the different aspects of your business running in the cloud. It allows you to address the connectivity, your operational needs, whether or not your software is compatible. 12 months ago, we had businesses coming to us saying, look, we'd love to run our whole business in the cloud, but we've been told that Mile just won't run in the cloud. And the truth is that we've been doing that now for quite a number of years. And the nice thing about having our own private cloud, our own corporate cloud infrastructure is that we can make it as flexible and reliable as it needs to be. And we're very fortunate that we had one of our clients in the room today, and they had an application which they needed to run. It runs their entire practice. And there's no cloud path for that particular software product, but as a result of running it within our infrastructure, they've been able to take their whole business and run it, including their practice management software, which has reduced the risk and I guess the dependency for their staff around some of these issues as well. Cost savings. There are occasionally cost savings there. Either there's going to be an investment, a little bit more than you're spending because perhaps your business isn't compliant with where it needs to be. And our cloud product has been designed around I guess, three tiers: either running your core application, whether it be your CRM or your ERP, an essential business platform, which might be what you're currently running, but moving it into the cloud, or one which takes into account email archive retention requirements, productivity improvements around policies and procedures. You know, a number of organizations here have already had the opportunity of seeing the benefits of running policies and procedures. But as a company myself, I noticed every time there was a new staff member coming on board, they'd ask me how to do something, or they'd ask another staff member how to do something. And our response would be, firstly, there's a procedure for it, go and look for it. Then they'd come back to us and say, well, I've looked here and I've looked here and I've looked here, but I can't find it. Where do I go? Either way, they're consuming time looking for the procedure. When they can't find it, they'll then burn another employee's time going through it. And the nice thing about some of these bolted-in applications is that they now have a tool very, very similar to the likes of Google, where they could type in leave request policy or leave request, and it would pull up the policy regarding leave request and find it very quickly. It saves on average about 108 hours per employee if you look at the stats from the software as a service provider that plugs in there. The cloud readiness audit helps to understand if now is the right time and what the risks might actually be to your business in moving either all of it or part of it into the cloud. A popular approach that is becoming more prevalent is this hybrid cloud. It's where businesses or cloud providers will take infrastructure, they'll bolt it into your organization and allow you to run it to get a feel for it. And then once you're comfortable, they just take that, bolt it, they unbolt it and put it in the data center, and it just continues to run everything from there. But at least it gives you a good experience for how it feels, you know, what some of the challenges might be, and addresses overcoming those problems before you actually take the leap and dive straight into the cloud. Benefits: available on demand, can scale up, can scale down, based on consumption, and it's accessible from anywhere. I remember I was fortunate enough to have a trip in Bali a couple of years ago, and unfortunately at that time, the other person within my organization, I run a small business, my finance person was also on leave, so I actually had to process some accounts information on the Monday. The nice thing was I was able to do it underneath the bungalow from my hotel room. It was awesome, and that's the accessibility that we get. Some of the other intangibles that we see are reductions in floor space costs. There's a real estate office that's saving nearly $16,000 a year in floor space. They're paying $900 a square metre. They've got a reduction in their electricity and running costs, and because we're able to change the equipment that they've got from traditional computers to these integrated cloud devices which consume less power, they generate less heat, which means you're also saving on your cooling bill. You're actually getting a double tick because it's saving you on electricity twice over. Most businesses are expecting that they're going to see a growth within the next 12 months of their use of the cloud. At the moment, as we covered, we see that growth being email, data storage, backup, hosting, but as you get down, you've got your CRM and ERP systems. Flexibility, not cost savings, is the big driver. You're able to get access to newer versions of software without necessarily having to spend that same amount of money that you used to spend to get that sort of outcome. It allows you to try different products. Some of these software as a service providers will give you a 30-day trial, so you can actually see whether or not what they're pitching as a good fit for your business realistically is a good pitch before you commit to it. You will see a reduction in costs if you've been spending large, like some of these other organizations have been spending. You'll see, if not a reduction in cost, at least an improvement in that productivity or reliability. There will be scalability. Your updates can be applied out of hours, so you're not having to worry about the patches and things like that. They're all just taken care of for you. And I think it's great because it produces a nice even playing field between some of the bigger players within the market and some of the smaller as well. It does provide you with disaster recovery. I'd encourage you to go back if you are looking at a cloud-based strategy and you have a really good policy around that. Take that back to your business continuity insurance provider give that to them and ask them whether or not there's an opportunity for you to get a reduction in your insurance premium, because you're actually reducing their risk as well as reducing yours. Very easy to implement, gives you access to a number of skilled engineers and vendors to take care of the technology side for you, and typically will give you a better than traditional on-premises response times than what you've. I think that's pretty much time. So if there are any questions, I'm going to stick around afterwards as well. Thank you again. I know I went through that really, really quickly, so feel free to ask questions. Send me your details if you like. I think there's a flyer on a case study from a client. If you give me a call or send me an email, I'll make sure that I get a copy of these slides to you as well. So thank you.
Excellent. Thanks, Sean. You sent me a little note today and said